Hi friends, Andromeda of Earth here, talking about this next week. Today is the 23rd to the 29th of February, so the last week of February. Oh, we have 29 days this year. Leap year. So last week of February 2020, the cardiac wisdom for this week. What information is coming from our heart and wants to be seen by you? We do a very simple spread every week. First card is know, second card grow, and the third card is show. Those can also be synonymous with our head, our heart, and our balance, as well as our past, present, and future. This week, I grabbed the Wolfe tarot. Love this deck. And the Sigil oracle. I grabbed that one. So we'll do that for our light and dark. I welcome any and only benevolent beings to this space. Any ancients, any ascended masters, any angels who are in alignment with divine will and universal law are welcome here. What information do we need to receive? King of Cups. So, kings are the rulers of the realm, right? And cups being our emotional waters. Whether you want it to be our subconscious or unconscious, or just, what's going on emotionally with us, within our heart. We have someone who is so comfortable in the water that I'm trying to get it without any glare. They can hover above it, they are grounded, but also immersed around and in water. They're grounded, but they're also elevated. See all the energy that's coming up out of their body. So very much in our head, right, is in our space of knowing. In our past, I can definitely see this with Pisces being where we are right now. We've just gotten the new moon in Pisces. Mercury is retrograding through Pisces. So going back, we're looking at our past. We are looking at our experiences, and we have an opportunity to really be the master of what has happened to us. We can be in the waters, so to speak. I mean, there's no land around him. He's in the water, but he's not. And of course I'm using he because it's the king here, and so it's actively managing, actively providing that structure to what's going on with the past, with what happened emotionally, to really allow us to see what happened clearly. We can be grounded and elevated while we are immersed in these waters. We can own our emotional realm. So keeping that in our mental space, bringing our emotions into our head, knowing that there can be a space for them together. show. Queen of Swords. Yeah, this person is up in the clouds. And it looks like, I want to say that's Venus behind them. What's beautiful about Venus is that it's all about relationships. How do you relate to something else, and how much pleasure does that give you? You know, is it noxious or not? Being up in the clouds, you can have a very vast perspective about what is giving you pleasure and what is not. Bringing our head, our swords, into our heart, right? This is our heart card. So very interesting kind of play balance that we've got going on this week, especially because we've got a king and a queen. So our head and our heart, bringing together our emotions and our mentations, right? They are all the way down upon the earth, and they are all the way up in the clouds in the stratosphere. You know, she's definitely looking at him though, right? Like the feminine receiving wholly of what's going on. And she looks to be in a sort of, it's not passive, but it's a resting state. Having the all-seeing eye, or the eye of Horus, there with her. She really takes her information from all of her senses, allowing her to completely elevate. Being a manager of your own mental space, bringing that into your heart. You know, our heart has capacity to think. There are brain cells in our heart. And it's actually a two-way street. Our heart talks to our brain as much as our brain talks to our heart, if not more. Very interesting there. And then grow. Oh, wow. Page of Wands. So we have the child of creation, the child of our passions, is out climbing the tallest mountains, ready to jump ship, you know, start their own universe, you know, go off into their own universe, you know, or they just came from that space and now they are just ascending upon this earth. Approaching our creativity from a childlike kind of space will be where our balance is and where our growth comes from. So interesting to me how it appears like there's been like a devolution. Oh, I did that backwards. Oh, well, I didn't need to switch these. Oh god, I can't do this. Okay. King, Queen, Page. There we go. So it's very interesting to me. We like start out as the king, and then we go into this queen, and then we go into the page energy. And then they're all royalty, and they all have a role to play. They're all very important. And who's to say that like going into that childlike kind of state is a devolution? Like maybe it really is our elevation and our growth. To be useful, to be curious, to be imaginative, to be playful. These are all states of elevation. We know this. To laugh. To climb up to the top of the mountain and have no fear. whatsoever. I have this very vivid memory when I was at an SCA event in Arizona. There were kids playing, but nobody was really like, apparently, nobody was like really watching the kids that were there. And a little boy, probably about 4, had climbed up to like the top of this. It was like our campsite was down, you know, by the water. It was down farther from like this really steep cliff, and somehow this child got all the way up there, and he had no fear whatsoever as he was up there. He was just like, oh, look at where I am, until he saw all the adults. And when he saw the adults, then he was like, looked around, and fortunately he sat down and just waited until an adult came. But you know, seeing this childlike energy up on the top here is very much what it reminded me of. You know, that kid wasn't necessarily doing anything bad. You know, they were exploring. You know, that isn't bad. And it wasn't the kid's fault either. It's not the creation's fault. They have their own journey and story. Our shadow for this spread here, the Wheel of Mars. So we have a tower moment potentially here, right? This is the deck's tower card. You know, it looks very much to me like a temple. And of course at the top there we have the all-seeing eye again. So we have everything, the whole of being and sacred space and burning. You know, at the top there are flames, and it's like there's this opportunity for death, the ending of one thing, and that feeling is very shadowed and veiled right now, being in our shadow. What a blessing, though, that we can have the awareness that this is looming around the corner, right? It's not so scary once you look at it, once you look at death. I mean, I know this isn't the death card, but I mean, that's what I kind of think of metaphorically when I think of tower, is an ending. So you know, you step into the temple, one thing, and when you step out of the temple, you're something else. At least if you allow the space to transform you. Allow for an interaction with the divine. And how amazing is it that we can step into the temple anytime we want. We have this temple right here, stepping inside, allowing ourselves to be with ourselves. Be curious about our passions, be curious about what we wanted to play with as a child. That will provide us great growth and maybe an ending to a part of our life, our chapter of our life that we're just ready to move on from. Both of these decks are produced by Serpent Fire, Devaney Amber Wolfe. Sigil. I always get this wrong. I always do it upside down. There's Sigil Oracle for you. Serpent Fire. Thank you. Thank you. So our light and dark. Something that can give us some information. That's how I view light. Light is information. and darkness is the absence or veiled aspects. You know, all the information is here. Just like all the information is here. Or here. Or here. Or at our root. All the information is now. And that's really what we attempt to tap into, because it's all possible. You know, where everything is floating on the quantum wave. You know, everything is until you look at it. Our light is limbo. So being in that state of unknown, we've got a transformative triangle there, you know, which looks like it's pointing at you, but it's creating a space of blackness, which is basically, well, I guess it depends on which way you look at it, whether it's all the information or no information. How do you view black? The space before knowing is the unknown, and it's a very important space to be in. Allow yourself to float around in the unknown for a little bit. That's where the light will eventually provide itself through. And our dark is one. It's kind of, it's very similar to the shape that we have on the back of the deck, which is very much a sacred spiral kind of action. I'm going to look that up in the guidebook just to provide me a little bit more of insight. Is it difficult to see ourselves all as one, whether it be as a humanity or whether it be within ourselves? Are we seeing our light and our darkness as ambiguity? You know, you don't have to be one or the other. You can't actually. So this is her representation of the Fool. It's like the beginning, the first step out. So having some resistance towards making that initial leap, it's very difficult because it's like we don't have all the information yet, but we can't. The only way to do it is to step out and do it and be the Fool, which is very powerful. It's a very powerful word. So I'm not surprised that, like, in society it got twisted to be like a bad thing, because society would rather that we just fall in line and not be fools, to not do our own thing, to take our own steps, to make our own business, to put our ideas out into the world without knowing all the information. You know, being in limbo, you know, that's where we are mostly. Judgment. Interesting. It's not the last card, but it's, you know, the second to last card. It's like what we do before we get to the world is that we look upon what it is that we have before us, and we, you know, judge or discern, you know, whether it is for us or not, before we have what we want. That makes sense. It's not a comfortable state of being in limbo, of judgment, but it I'm seeing the Rider-Waite card in my mind of Judgment, and the angel blowing the horn, providing life to the dead people. If you have some time, play with sound healing. You know, see what kind of sounds you can put into your space of limbo. Being cognizant of you know, your TV usage or radio usage or what you're listening to, what people you're around, so that you are consciously creating your space. We are consciously discerning whether we want this in our mind or not. And allowing this to be, allowing our state of light and our state of unknowing to be, will allow us to traverse the dark of the information that we are, or the journey that we are about to embark on with the Fool. Very fun. I'm going to make an altar, do some energy work. Also, we'll create a post for part 2 of symbolism and journal prompts to explore more things to dive in personally with these cards in this reading here. And that will be up on Patreon. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking care of yourself. And thank you for being. Bye.